This is the third time we have an impeachment motion against the governor of Meru. And as I kept telling you, all through and through, from the time of the first impeachment motion to today, the governor's position has been that the problem is everybody else. To use our own words, she is the foremost peacemaker in Meru, even though I recall the Honorable Edwin Sifuna asking her last year, how do we reconcile the aggressive governor we see in the videos with the meek, humble, vulnerable governor that appears before the Senate? And I heard the Honorable Sifuna again asked yesterday something about for how long. The question was, for how long, Mr. Speaker, can we in good conscience allow Meru County to be in this perpetual circus of a crisis in which their governor, on average, every 4 months, has fallen out with the MCAs, has fallen out that time with all the elected leaders, the same problem now, that time with the church, now with our own deputy. And the point I'm trying to make, Mr. Speaker, it cannot be said, at least not honestly, that the Honorable Governor Kawira Mwangaza is being falsely accused, is being harassed, is being intimidated, and whatnot, and whatnot. I have said many allegories, some of which have put me in trouble with the Senate. I'll tell you a few more and hope this time I won't fall in trouble. Mr. Speaker, there is a famous book by Robert Greene, which I'm sure many of us here have read, called The 48 Laws of Power. And it describes many world events, many leaders, their successes, their failures, their mistakes, and whatnot. One of the stories I love in that book, because it is relevant to the matter before you, but also because of the event it describes and how it changed the world history. The world will be very different today. There will not be a Republic of Kenya today. Perhaps Britain and France would never have emerged as superpowers in the 18th, 19th century. Perhaps the United States would never have emerged. But for the failure of a leader in antiquity called Cyrus the Great to observe a simple rule of life called knowing when to stop. Mr. Speaker, it is our humble submission that if there was an impeachment motion in October last year highlighting misconduct of the category now before you, that motion failed because, of course, the High Court stopped the Assembly from debating it. But the point I'm making is issues were flagged about how the governor was running Meru County in that motion. She persisted, as a result of which a second motion was tabled and it reached this house. She was given very many kind lessons I recall yesterday citing lessons from the Honorable Senator Tobiko. I recall many lessons from the Honorable Senator Karungo, and indeed many other senators. And when we came again, just like today, the look was of that of a humble, meek, polite, vulnerable governor. And she promised, as she has just promised now, that if I recall her words, Meru will be a shining example in terms of good governance, in terms of calmness, in terms of everything good. Then, as they say in the medical world, people with conditions, sometimes they use a word called relapsing. The governor, after making that promise, and admittedly after the county enjoying brief moment of honeymoon, relapsed yet again to the very things that were in the first impeachment motion, to the very things that were in the second impeachment motion, and hence the reason we are before you for the third impeachment motion. Cyrus the Great, who is our lesson on leaders should know when to stop, when to change tact, when to turn a new leaf. Of course, we all know Cyrus the Great. The reason he is called the Great is that he was a great conqueror. He conquered the known world then, from Babylon to Mede to Achaemenids to Lydia. And basically, he was the ruler of the world as it was known then. But then there was one small country he discovered that didn't seem to be part of the known world, of a people called the Massageti. And instead of being content, he declares war on this country. For the record, Mr. Speaker, this country was actually led by a woman called Tomiris. And Tomiris, when Cyrus assembled his mighty army, Persia then was the superpower, assembled it on the river separating the boundaries of his empire with this small kingdom, was sent a message telling him, be content with your victory so far and the fact that you have conquered the world, and please stand. Attempt to tolerate seeing me rule my small, miserable country with its little resources, with its small army, and don't attack. And he was warned in that letter that if he attacked, nothing good would come from it. Instead of learning when to stop, Cyrus insisted on a war. Tomiris told him, then if you insist on a war, I want peace. I will allow your forces to cross the river without any resistance and will fight from my side of the border on one condition, that will fight a conventional war. Cyrus agreed, but because he could never stand another leader enjoying any form of glory, just like our governor cannot stand an MP, an MCA, or anyone anywhere else in leadership, she must bring them down. Cyrus was obsessed with bringing down this little kingdom that, for no good reason other than his own vanity and his failure to know when to stop. So he pulls a trick, and we have seen many tricks on this podium, of a meek, humble, vulnerable-looking governor who is a victim of very many things, whose defense is, it wasn't me, it was someone else. So Cyrus' trick involved throwing a lavish bash and setting up the soldiers of this small kingdom to a drink, and then while they were inebriated, he massacred them, leaving only a few, and took the prince of that other small country as a prisoner of war. Even after this, the leader of the small country still offered him peace and told him, you broke the rule that it will be a conventional warfare and won by a trick. I still give you another chance to return my son, and will still declare peace. Cyrus refused, and the son, of course, of Queen Tomiris, unable to live with the indignity of being a prisoner of war, committed suicide. When the people of this small country heard that the crown prince had committed suicide, small as they were, weak as they were, vulnerable as they were, they organized a violent battle in which their army, which was about 100th of Cyrus's army, actually won the violent battle, and Cyrus himself was killed. Because of Cyrus' inability to know when to stop, Persia added as a superpower, and that is how Rome became the dominant country. And of course, the world and human civilization as we know it today is based on the Roman civilization. That's why he said, Mr. Speaker, there would have been no Britain, no France, no America, but for the mistake of one leader not knowing when to stop. Our greatest fear is that the history of Meru may take an irreversible, tragic path. We saw very violent slaughters of animals, threats of slaughtering people and whatnot, and we don't know, as I was telling you, as long as our governor keeps relapsing to these confrontations, when things will take a turn for the worse in a manner that is irreversible. Is it fair that the people of Meru live in this state of anxiety? For how long can we subject them to the situation that has now prevailed? Governor Kawira Mwangaza, of course, will tell you she knows when to stop. The record is clear. You have seen the videos from our side. You have seen the videos from our side. It is clear. She will not stop. Of course, right now she will tell you she will stop because our career is on the line. But we know better. She will not. Mr. Speaker, a story is told about a frog and a scorpion and a swollen river. The scorpion couldn't swim and asked the frog, who is an amphibian and therefore capable of crossing the swollen river, to assist the frog to cross the river. And the frog tells the scorpion in the story, but you will sting me before we are done with crossing, and we'll both die and drown. And the scorpion promised, no, I can't do that, because if I were to sting you while you're carrying me on your back to cross this swollen river, we would both die, and because it would be mutual destruction, as the Americans and the Russians called it during the Cold War, I have no incentive. There is no rational reason why I would sting you. And poor frog bought this story, just like you're being invited to buy the story. I will pray for them. I'll forgive them. We only need a month. So Frog took Scorpion on his back, and Frog started swimming across the river, and right in the middle, Scorpion hoisted his tail and stung the frog. And of course, that poison disables the nervous system, and the frog couldn't swim, and they both started drowning. And Frog asks in the story, "Why did you sting? You promised that you won't sting. And you are also aware by you stinging, we would both be extinguished." And Scorpion gave Frog a simple answer. "I stung because it is in my nature to sting. We are submitting to you, Mr. Speaker, with all the humility. Kawira Mwangaza keeps relapsing to these violations of the law and the Constitution and the vilification. We can call whatever the specifics we want. The reason she keeps relapsing back to the same thing is because, like that Scorpion in the story, it is in the nature of Kawira to sting. So even if you give her another chance, whether it is on account of pity, whether it is on account of sympathy, whatever the reason, she will sting again. And I swear, Mr. Speaker, there are no prophets in my family, but I can tell you, if you forgive her, she will sting again and will be back in this assembly. And the question is the one, therefore, asked by the Honorable Sifuna: for how long can we endure this embarrassment? Is it fair? I had the senator ask, do wants have consequences? Of course, wants have consequences. Wars have been fought because someone said words that they shouldn't have said. That's why there is an adage that says, speech is silver, silence is golden. Mr. Speaker, you were told kaende kaende means development and other nice things. I invite any of you, because it's an open country. Kaende kaende is not an English word, it's not a Swahili word, it's not a native word from any of our native languages. It is Sheng, street slang in Nairobi. And I told you yesterday, all you need is pick your phone, call a young person, ask them what is the meaning of kaende kaende. And I told you the meaning is, I don't care. Na liwe liwalo. Kusera kusera. And I recall telling you, because it is in the nature of Kawira to do these type of things. When I mean it is in her nature, I mean she can't help it. It's part of our chemistry. Unfortunately, we have human beings like those, and they are our beloved brothers and sisters. We can't get rid of them, but we can't allow them to be governor. We can't allow them. They are our beloved mothers, sisters and brothers. But the very reason chapter 6 of our Constitution and all these laws we've cited is an acknowledgement that not all of us can be a state officer. Some of us may be very intelligent. They may be very eloquent. They may have very good mobilization skills. As a matter of fact, they may be loved by the people. Barabbas was so loved that the people chose him over the Son of God. But it doesn't mean they are the right holders of certain offices, and if by what I called in the last impeachment that seemed to bring me into trouble with the Senate, an aberration of democracy. Mr. Speaker, Article 181 exists because the drafters of our Constitution, in their wisdom,